Today is the March for Life, so we'll discuss a brief history of the march and list out 10 arguments people make supporting abortion and debunk every single one of them. This is the God of Freedom Show. Alrighty guys, I hope everyone has had a great week so far. Happy Friday. We have a lot to get to today, so let's not waste too much time. But yeah, today should be very interesting. This is the first time first time in a while where I haven't had to just go through a news cycle trying to find something. So it'll be, this entire episode will be pretty much all about the March for Life and abortion and all that good stuff. But before we get to all of that, I do want to make a couple of pitches real quick. So we got the March for Life, where hundreds of thousands of people just go into Washington D.C. to stand up for the unborn born in this country. And in order to do this, the March for Life and organizations like the Susan B. Anthony list need donations to help continue this fight to protect the unborn in this country. So I do recommend, if you're interested in helping them out and getting behind, not just saying you support something, but actually putting your money behind it, well, definitely I would recommend you donating to the March for Life and the Susan B. Anthony list, or whatever other pro-life organization you can find. You can do a once type of donation, or you can do a monthly recurring donation. Doesn't matter. But I definitely recommend doing this. It supports them and just kind of helps build our case for the pro-life movement. Alright, so like I said, today is the March for Life, and again, there's hundreds of thousands of people gathering in DC right now, and standing up for the unborn in this country who need it, because the unborn in this country are the most vulnerable human beings in this country, because every single day, about 3,000 babies are aborted. And that's just, in the time we live now, where how technology is just updating and everything, it's still so ridiculous how, abortion is still defended. But yeah, I mean, it's just so awesome to see so many people, especially young people. The entire crowd is mostly young people, especially young women, gathering here. People on the media would like to say, "Oh, this is just a bunch of religious old men telling women that what they can do with her body or whatever." When, in matter of fact, you look in the crowd, most of it is young women. So that just tells you something right there. But yeah, this march is actually pretty interesting, because President Trump actually made a speech, and it was a really good speech actually. And I recommend you definitely go watch it. And what's cool about it, he's the first president ever in U.S. history to go to these events, right? Go to the March for Life, which is one of the reasons why I still continue to support President Trump right here, because he's defended the pro-life movement all the way through. I mean, yes, seen people that say, "Oh, he was pro-choice back in 1999 or whatever," but guess what? People do change their minds, and he seems to change his mind on the whole situation. Is really good, and that's why I support him, and would never ever support Democrats who support abortion on demand. So to get started here, let's kind of give a brief history of where kind of this march started. So back in 1973, let's go back to when Roe v. Wade was decided. So Roe v. Wade is one of the most garbage decisions by the Supreme Court in U.S. history, because they list out that abortion is somehow protected under the 14th Amendment, but you read the 14th Amendment, there's nothing in there that suggests you can kill your unborn child at any point. So that argument doesn't make any sense, and the idea that the Supreme Court can decide something like that, which is something that's not protected under the Constitution, just shows you just how more how powerful the course of Supreme Court has gotten over the years, and why and that's what the left wants. They want to use because they know they can't get it with Congress or the Senate, whatever, because the people elect them, and most people in this country, vast majority of people, I think, are probably pro-life, but the left doesn't want people to decide that, so they use the Supreme Court to push their agendas. And this is what happened in 1973. The U.S. Supreme Court, all men, by the way, all of them were old white men, and so the whole idea that that men cannot have an opinion on abortion, unless of course you support abortion. But if you oppose abortion, you can't have an opinion on that. But whatever. So yeah, like I said, this was a garbage decision right here, and it has no constitutional protection. Abortion has no constitutional protection whatsoever. So in response to this, a year later, on the same day, January 22nd, it was the March for Life started, and it was on the west steps of the Capitol in Washington D.C., and about 20,000 people came up there to stand up for the unborn in this country. So that's considered small by today's estimates, but given that it was a new march, that's still pretty good attendance, and obviously over the years it has gotten larger and larger and larger. Like last year, there was probably 600,000 people in DC for the March for Life. We don't know the estimates for this year's yet, but I'm pretty sure it's about the same. So that just tells you how big the pro-life movement has gotten over the years, because as technology advances, you see how the baby develops in the womb. You start to see, okay, obviously this is a human life, obviously. So, and then every year since that, they've been holding it, and it never stopped. Of course, the media would like to ignore it, but it does happen. I'm interested to see if they'll cover it this year, because since President Trump was there, they probably will be forced to cover it, which will be pretty interesting. They covered it sort of last year, but of course they covered it in a bad way, with the whole coveting Catholic stuff, and I'm pretty sure most of y'all remember that. But, so yeah, that's pretty much kind of the brief history of March for Life right there. It's just a really nice, cool event right there. And by the, how much it's grown over the years, and the momentum has gained for the last few 3-4 years or so, I see, pretty soon we won't need to be doing this march. I think eventually abortion will be looked on as, an abomination, like how people look on slavery today. So, alrighty. So, like I said in the kind of intro right here, I'm going to be listing out 10 different arguments that the pro-choice people make in support of abortion. And I'm going to, of course, debunk every single one of them. Alrighty, so let's get into argument number 1, which is, it's not a human life. So obviously this is kind of dumb for a number of reasons. This is one of the chief arguments that the pro-choice movement makes, that it's just a clump of cells. It's not a human life, just a clump of cells. First off, if you find a fertilized fetus on Mars, whatever, that'll be considered a human life. And people there'll be people sending, the government will be sending people up there to protect it and bring it back to Earth. And with animals, when animals are in the same stage in development, the left will like to say, oh, that's obviously a baby right there, you can't kill it. But of course, when it comes to a human being, for some reason they just completely ignore that argument. For some reason, they devalue humans under animals or something like that. But obviously the whole idea that that it's not a human life at all. The people like to say it's not a human life until it passes through the birth canal, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and is anti-scientific, or yeah, whatever, however say it. But So, in order to like kind of show you this, I'm gonna go through kind of the first, like, probably the first trimester of development, fetal development, and it's very interesting stuff. So, by like week 2, fertilization happens. It's just when the cells start multiplying and all that. Well, that's where they start when the sperm meets egg and it starts, becoming like its own living cell and start multiplying everywhere. And then let's go to week 4. This is when it's now officially an embryo, where it starts to take form. It started to slowly build into its own form. And this is when, more women usually find out they're pregnant right here. By week 5, this is when you can start seeing kind of it develop into a human. You can start seeing the face. It looks like a tadpole more than anything, but you start seeing kind of the face, a little bit of the head, maybe a little bit of limbs. And this is where the heart starts beating right here. So that's where most doctors, I don't know if you can detect it at that point, but I'm guessing with today's technology, you probably could. And then, so by week 7, you can start seeing it like starts growing like little legs, arms, and all that. You can start seeing more of his face to see little eyes, and the heart is still. You can start seeing the heart more right there. And by week 8, this is when like you can obviously the eyes are fully formed. You can see fingers and little toes and ears on the right there. And this is just by week 8 right here. And then by week 10, like this is when it's almost like you can clearly tell this is a baby right here. Like the tail that usually it has is completely gone. You can see it has skin. You can see all of its toes, fingers, ears, nose, mouth. It's really cool stuff right here. And then by week 12, this is when this is when like you start seeing it get fully formed right here, and you can clearly see it, although it's small, it is pretty small, but it's about the size of a lime at this point. It clearly looks like a baby, and this is by 12 weeks right here, and then by 13 weeks, you can see like fingerprints on the fingers. You see the veins and other organs starting to develop. And that's just through the first trimester. And so, like, the idea that this is just not a human life at all, despite it not looking like one, it obviously is a human life. As soon as fertilization happens, its own human cell develops and starts multiplying. And again, like, if this same cell right here, or like fetus was found on Mars, for example, it would be considered alive. So what's the difference between it being on Mars and being in a womb? It doesn't make any sense for me. All right, and argument number 2 is the whole "my body, my choice" thing. So this is obviously one of the biggest arguments that people make for abortion, saying, "Oh, you don't have any right to control my body. It's my body. I can do whatever I want with it." But here's the thing: nobody's interested in controlling your body. Nobody wants to have any control over your kidneys or the lungs, the heart, or whatever. Nobody's interested in that. What we're interested in is protecting the life that's in your womb right now. And that is not your body. It may be, your body may be supporting it, but it's not your body. It's its own separate body growing inside of you. So this whole argument that it's my body, my choice thing, it just makes no sense. Again, it's obviously not your body. So argument number 3 is that abortion is just like pulling the plug, and this is like one of the most evil arguments right here. It's a giant euphemism. Like abortion itself, like abortion has all sorts of euphemisms that surround it to hide the fact that how brutal abortion is, and to really like kind of show you like how bad it is, I am going to show you a video of what an abortion is. And this is a second trimester medical abortion right here, and it's horrific. I mean, it's really horrific. So if you're sensitive about this stuff right here, I recommend probably not watching it. You can definitely skip over to the next argument. But it's about maybe 3 minutes long, 3 minutes and 6 seconds long. So, and I'm not gonna play the entire video, so you don't have to skip over a whole lot. But for those else who don't want to watch, it just preparing you. It is horrific. It is animated, but still very horrific. Here it is.
A Dini is performed between 13 and 24 weeks of pregnancy. After administering anesthesia, the abortionist uses a weighted speculum, like this one, that opens the vagina widely. Because second trimester babies are so large, this greater access facilitates a late-term abortion. Late-term abortion requires that the cervix be prepared 24 to 48 hours in advance with laminaria. Laminaria is a type of sterilized seaweed that absorbs water over 8 to 12 hours and swells to several times its original diameter. Once removed, metal dilators can be used to further open the cervix as needed. Once the cervix has been stretched open, the suction tube is placed inside. A baby at 20 weeks gestation is as big as the length of my hand, from head to rump, not counting the legs. The suction machine is turned on, and pale yellow amniotic fluid surrounding the baby is suctioned out through the catheters. With babies this big, they don't fit through catheters this size. The baby's bones and skull are too strong to be torn apart by suction alone. This is a Sofer clamp. A Sofer clamp is made of stainless steel. It's about 13 inches long. The business end is about 2.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide, and there are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. The abortionist uses this clamp to grasp an arm or leg. Once he has a firm grip, the abortionist pulls hard in order to tear the limb from the baby's body. One by one, the rest of the limbs are removed, along with the intestines, the spine, and the heart and lungs. Usually the most difficult part of the procedure is extracting the baby's head, which is about the size of a large plum at 20 weeks. The head is grasped and crushed. The abortionist knows he has crushed the skull when a white substance comes out of the cervix. This was the baby's brains. The abortionist then removes skull pieces. He removes the placenta and any leftover parts of the baby with a curette, scraping the lining of the uterus for any remaining tissue. The abortionist then collects the baby parts and reassembles them to make sure that there are 2 arms, 2 legs, and all the pieces. Once all the parts have been accounted for, the abortion is complete. For the woman, this procedure carries a significant risk of major complications, including perforation or laceration of the uterus or cervix, with possible damage to the bowel, bladder, and other maternal organs. Infection and hemorrhage can also occur, which can even lead to death. Future pregnancies are also at greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm Dr. Anthony Levatino, and in the early part of my career as an OBGYN, I performed over 1,200 abortions.
Yeah, so again, that is just horrific right there, like what happens during a second trimester abortion right there. And with like a first trimester, obviously they're sucked into that tube right there. But obviously, again, he said is that at the second trimester they're too strong to be sucked in, so they rip them apart, crush your head, and just pull them out piece by piece. So the whole idea that abortion is just like pulling a plug on someone like that is completely wrong right there. It completely mitigates how violent and horrific abortion is. And the media will often like to ignore it because they obviously realize how horrific it is, but they want to ignore it to protect their precious, and they want to ignore it to continue, so they can continue to support abortion. It's just all horrific. So before I'm going to continue on to get into more of the rest of the arguments pro-choices make. But first, you're going to have to go over to YouTube to get it all. So again, like I said, you'll be getting all the rest of my arguments right here. I'm debugging all the rest of the arguments, and also in the back half of the episode, you can get where I'll go over John, the book of John. I'm going to be starting on John chapter 7 today. And you can get stuff like good stuff and bad stuff for the week, which is basically stuff I like and dislike of the week or whatever. And yeah, you can find me on you can find me on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Otherwise, I'll see y'all next week. This is the God Freedom Show. Alrighty, guys. So let's continue on with the arguments right here. So argument number 4 is the whole viability argument. And for those who don't know, viability is basically where you're viable. Basically, like you and I, like when you're adult, you're viable. That you can take care of yourself, and all that. You can survive on your own. And the pro-choice argument is that babies in the womb can't survive on their own, so they're not. So it's okay to abort them. Which, okay, this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and is, again, an evil argument. Like, the entire argument supporting abortion is evil, but this one is specifically really evil right here, and because it doesn't make sense whatsoever. So again, viability is where you can take care of yourself and survive on your own. But obviously, of course, babies can't survive on their own. That's obvious, and that's including inside the womb and outside the womb. And so, like with a 2-year-old, if you just leave them in the house alone, they won't be able to survive very long. Obviously, so is it okay to kill them at that point? And the same for like elderly folks who are in assisted living who can't take care of themselves or survive on their own. Is it okay to kill them? So the whole argument, the whole viability argument is no sense whatsoever. And like even say you're in a coma, you're in a bad accident or whatever, and you're in a coma for a little bit, you're not viable then too. So is it okay to kill that person too? So yeah, the whole viability argument makes no sense whatsoever. And again, it's just very, very evil. Alright, argument number 5 is that abortion is the responsible choice. So, this right here, again, the idea that abortion is responsible makes no sense because, pro-choice people like to say it's responsible because, say you struggling financially, or you just can't make it on you can't, support, you're struggling and all that. So, it would be irresponsible to have a baby because you'll probably struggle more financially. So, and the baby will probably be miserable anyway. So, but, okay, the argument doesn't make no sense. So, say if you're a bad parent and your child is 4, is it okay to kill them then? So, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And it is not responsible. Honestly, a responsible choice would be to have that baby, and you can give it up for adoption, or you can just take care of it yourself. That's getting rid of the problem. That's not responsible. That's just taking the easy way out. Argument number 6 is that abortion makes life better for women, and this kind of coincides with the previous argument, but to give you kind of an example of this, is that there was an article, I believe last year, in The Guardian about this whole thing, and it's titled "Abortion at the Age of 23 Gave Me Freedom" by Hadley Freeman. And here's what it says. When I was 23, my life forked. Until then, it had felt like one of those LA freeways with a half a dozen lanes. I had options in terms of which path I took, but they were all going in the same direction, general direction. I was barely making a living in a job I enjoyed, and living in a dump with a friends I adored. Life was wide open. Then one day I took a pregnancy test, and suddenly there were two directions for me: have the baby or don't. I cried on the bathroom floor with my best friend, but the tears were out of embarrassment that had been so careless. They weren't out of fear. It was years before I appreciated what a privilege that was. And here it is right here. During the Irish abortion referendum, there was a lot of talk about the extreme cases in which legal abortion is not just a right but a necessity. Rape victims, fetuses with, I guess it's supposed to be fetuses right there. It looks like a mistype right there, with fatal abnormalities. But it would be dishonest not to mention the moral, banal stories like mine. But then back then I was with my first boyfriend, who I love very, very much. I was starting to recover from anorexia, which is why I had been more careful. I assumed I couldn't conceive, and my boyfriend then had no more emotionally equipped than I was to look after our baby. But the truth is, I absolutely could have had that baby. I would have had given my job, but back with my parents, my relationship would have eventually ended, and would have taken years for me to be able to support myself and the baby. But sure, I could have done it. It continues on, like, just how, like, she goes through an abortion and how, like, her life is all better and everything. But that's all, like, honestly, that's all, like, kind of temporary joy right there. Like, the idea that, women are going to be more happier, they abort their baby just to pursue their careers, is utter nonsense. In fact, women are more happier who have children. That's just a fact right there. So, and also, like, the whole, like, thing, so I get to kill my baby so I can have a better life. It's completely immoral right there. And so, like, my kind of point right here is that your right to choose, like, whatever, it stops at their right to life. Like, they do have right to life. So, and yeah. So, argument number 7 is that abortion is okay in cases of rape and incest. And this, like, case is more kind of the more difficult type of arguments right here. If you remember back last year, Georgia and Alabama passed laws and restricting abortion heavily. And one of the things was, I think especially Alabama, they ban abortion, like, even in cases of rape and incest. And there was this massive outrage because of this. Because one of the arguments that pro-choice people make is that all abortion needs to be, like, made legal because of rape and incest. Which doesn't make sense, because rape and incest pregnancies, that constitutes for less than 1% of all pregnancies and all abortions in this country. Excuse me, sorry. So the idea that we need to make all, like, they'll say, like, some pro-choice would say, they're not okay with any other abortion, but they're okay with it with rape and incest, which doesn't make sense to me. like, again, nobody is okay with rape or incest. No, nobody. And like anybody who like commits it, any like man who commits rape or incest, they deserve to go to prison for life. And I mean, there is some consideration that they should be given the death penalty. I mean, there's that consideration too. But I mean, the idea that does the life of the baby have any less value despite how it was conceived? Again, spoiler, it doesn't. Like, it's still a human life, no matter how it's conceived. And really, honestly, that the baby, even though it was conceived in horrific circumstances, that is honestly probably the blessing that comes out of these horrible situations. So, I mean, it is a difficult, like, it is a difficult kind of argument right there, but I think most pro-lifers would say, it's still not okay to kill a baby, no matter how, if it was conceived by rape or incest, because it's still a human life. Argument number 8 is that it's for the safety of the mother. And this one is particularly interesting right here, because for a while, the safety of the mother, like, regarded to the life of the mother. Basically, because most people are okay with abortion being considered if the life of the mother is in danger, but that is honestly should be in the first trimester and maybe the early parts of the second trimester, because at some point when they're in the later parts of the second trimester and the third trimester, that baby can survive at that point if it's given out. So especially in the third trimester, even if the woman's life is in danger of giving birth, it doesn't make sense to abort it because it's going to have to be removed anyways. So one of the ways to remove it to help the mother survive is through like a C-section, for example. And so that's one of the options right there. So abortion at the third trimester, even if your life is in danger, the mother's life is in danger, it doesn't make sense to me. But lately there's been an argument that just for the health of the mother, like New York passed a law last year that's saying that abortion is okay at any point, at any stage of the pregnancy, including the health and the life of the mother. So most people are okay with the whole life thing, but the health is a very broad definition because that includes the physical health or mental health or whatever. So the idea is basically if the woman is like upset because of an abortion, because if she's pregnant, whatever, she can kill it, and then that's perfectly moral. But it honestly isn't. And yes, I mean it is true that if women do give birth, it does pose a risk. But again, with today's technology, that is becoming less prevalent today, and with C-sections too, that is obviously less and less prevalent. So this whole argument just makes no sense to me. Argument number 9 is the whole Handmaid's Tale thing. This argument just boggles my mind right here. It's a whole slippery slope of control type thing. Basically, if you ban abortion, then eventually women become subjects. And it's kind of like, I haven't seen Handmaid's Tale, but I've definitely seen like people talk about it. Whatever, it seemed like a very dumb show. And it involves this whole situation that women are forced to become pregnant and all that. So, I mean, okay, the idea that if we ban abortion, that's gonna happen is just utter nonsense. Again, no one is forcing women to get pregnant. No one. Because 99% of pregnancies in the country is by consensual consent. So, and, people like to call it conservatives, saying, like, you're all for, like, small government and all that, but why are you okay with the government being involved in stuff in this situation? Well, the reason for that is because, there's definitely libertarians that say, abortion should be involved, the government shouldn't be involved in this area. And I disagree entirely with that. Because, again, the baby that's being aborted is a human life. So it has a right to life. under the Constitution. So, and the government's responsibility is to protect the life of everybody in America. So like a government ban on abortion would be good because it's given constitutional protections to the unborn. So it's not violating the Constitution; it's given constitutional protections. So yeah, that whole argument to him is to think so dumb, really dumb. Then the final argument is that abortion lowers the crime rate. This one right here is just particularly just immoral, gross, and it's everything. And it completely throws away the whole idea of the due process. So basically, like, you can look at the baby and say, there's a chance that this baby might commit a crime later in his life. So let's kill it to make sure that doesn't happen. So, like, okay, it's so evil. Like, what? How can anyone, like, literally argue this right here? Is that, like, how can you predict that your baby will commit a crime later on, so that makes it okay to abort it? Like, that doesn't make sense, and that does affect, like, minorities in this country, because and this is factually true. Minorities are the ones who commit the most crimes in this country. So, abortion, so if you were consider abortion based on that circumstances, like, abortion would target most of the minorities. So that just doesn't make sense. And one of the kind of like analogies to kind of make this more clear is the whole baby Hitler thing. So basically, it was like, I think New York Times made this argument, like, basically, would you go back in time and kill baby Hitler or whatever? And here's the thing: most pro-life people will say no. Like, what we would do is to take baby Hitler out of his home, and then bring him to another home, maybe bring him to America, where he can become someone different, and not become the monster he became, that slaughtered 6 million Jews and millions of other people. So, yeah, like, because baby Hitler, like, he wasn't that evil monster yet. So, like, why would you kill him at that point when he's just a newborn? When you could just simply kind of raise him differently. So it's just a horrible immoral argument. And again, the entire arguments that support abortion is just completely immoral. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all of them right there. And then notice, like, all the arguments, the media won't like to portray the March for Life as just a bunch of religious bigots or whatever. But again, I honestly didn't mention religion throughout the whole thing. And there's plenty, because abortion is the pro-life position is backed up by science. Especially with today's technology. But, of course, there is a kind of faith-based argument that backs this whole thing. And one of the biggest verses that kind of supports this position is Genesis 1:27. It's that whole God made us in His image thing, and, like, basically that's what separates us from animals right there. That God gave us His made us in His image and gave us the breath of life. And so without that chief event right there, like, everything that all this would be meaningless. But because of that, all human life has meaning, including the unborn. So, like, the idea that because in a womb, in the mother's stomach growing, that's not a human life, it just is anti-semitic and just completely immoral. And I really think, hopefully, that the pro-life position will win at the end, because I think we're getting to the time where Roe v. Wade will be overturned, and then that people will look back on abortion as just everybody who they'll look up back in these times as it was completely barbarian times, and that'll probably be more sooner than we think, and I really hope so. Alrighty, so I think that's pretty much it for that. So let's get into some scripture right here, and we're gonna be starting in John chapter 7 today. If I can get it open. Come on. I should probably bring out my actual Bible sometime, because my phone is just being slow all the time, but alright, I got it open. So again, I'm going to be John chapter 7. I'm going to be going through from verse 1, to verse 24. And again, I'll be in the New Living Translation. You can follow along. Alrighty, so this is the first section is Jesus and his brothers. After this, Jesus traveled around the Galilee, and he wanted to stay out of Judea, where the Jewish leaders were plotting his death. But soon it was time for the Jewish festival of shelters, and Jesus' brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, where your followers can see your miracles. You can't become famous if you hide like this. If you can do such wonderful things, show yourself to the world." For even his brothers did not believe in him. Jesus replied, "Now it is not the right time for me to go, but you can go at any time. The world can hate you, but it does hate me because I accuse it of doing evil. You go on, I'm not going to this festival because my time has not yet come." After saying these things, Jesus remained in Galilee. And one of for that part right there, one of the key things I noticed right there is the world can hate you, but it does hate me because I accuse it of doing evil. And that honestly kind of relates to today's topic. When you point out, for example, abortion is evil and immoral, but the pro-choice movement and life just gets so vile and angry about this. How dare you say something I've seen some of the worst arguments in the abortion case right there. It's cool how that relates right there. I actually didn't plan that, but it's cool how that relates. But anyways, it continues on here. But after his brothers left for the festival, Jesus also went, though secretly, staying out of the public view. The Jewish leaders tried to find him at the festival, kept asking if anyone had seen him. There was a lot of grumbling about him among the crowds. Some argued he's a good man, but others said he's nothing but a fraud who deceives the people. But no one had the courage to speak favorably about him in public, for they were afraid of getting in trouble with the Jewish leaders. Then, midway through the festival, before we get that, that's kind of one of the key things about the Pharisees back in the day, their night time, is that if you even mention anything good about Jesus, there's this very, very big possibility you'd be thrown out of the synagogue and just getting in some kind of trouble by the Jewish leaders. Alright, continues right here. Then, midway through the festival, Jesus went up to the temple and began to teach. The people were surprised when they heard him. "How does he know so much when he hasn't been trained?" they asked. Jesus told them, My message is not my own. It comes from God, who sent me. Anyone who wants to do the will of God will know whether my teaching is from God or is merely my own. Those who speak for themselves want glory only for themselves, but a person who seeks to honor the one who sent him speaks not truth, not lies. Moses gave you the law, but none of you obeys it. In fact, you are trying to kill me. The crowd replied, You're demon-possessed. Who's trying to kill you? I did one miracle on the Sabbath, and you were amazed. But you work on the Sabbath too. When you obey Moses' law of circumcision, actually the tradition of circumcision began with the patriarchs long before the law of Moses. For if the correct time for circumcising your son falls on a Sabbath, you go ahead and do it as to not break the law of Moses. So why should you be angry with me for healing a man on the Sabbath? Look beneath the surface, so you can judge correctly. And that's true. That's one of the key things about the Pharisees, again, right there, is that when Jesus healed, he healed more than once on the Sabbath. Like, he healed on several Sabbaths. But they were so angry. Like, how dare he heal on the Sabbath? And this is not a rip on, like, really Jews today. And this is really rip on the Pharisees back in this time, right there. Is that they had a very, very strict view of what the Sabbath is supposed to be. I mean, it's supposed to be like a day of rest and all that, but they had it so strict that you couldn't even cook or anything. I don't think you can even cook or anything on the Sabbath back in the day. So even if you did that, you can be stoned in the streets back in that time. So since like Jesus healed on the Sabbath, like, they wanted to kill him, but they obviously couldn't because they would just cause him to become a martyr at that time. This, of course, it does happen. But yeah, that's very interesting stuff right there. So next week we can be continuing with verse 25. Alrighty, so let's get to some good stuff and bad stuff for the week. So some good stuff for the week right here. So as you know, obviously know that I'm a big Star Wars fan, like a big one. Obviously I wasn't a big fan of the sequel trilogy. Excuse me. I did love episode 7. I did not like episode 8 or 9 fully. But there's this one area of Star Wars that has been just amazing. It's an amazing part of Star Wars since the original trilogy, and that is the TV shows. Particularly the TV show The Star Wars Clone Wars, which originally aired on Cartoon Network back in the day. And it is an animated Star Wars show, but it is amazing. You gotta watch it. Right now it's on Disney Plus, so I recommend maybe getting like a week, like free trial. You do get a free trial for a week, and then I recommend like just binging it or whatever. It's an amazing show. Oh, excuse me, my throat is a little scratchy. But the reason why I bring this up is because Disney Plus is actually launching the final season of Clone Wars. And this was supposed to come out like a long time ago, but Disney decided to cancel it before it was finished for some reason. I don't know why, but finally it's continuing right here, and it comes back on in February. I think February 30th. No, not February 30th. I'm sorry, but sometime in February, like mid-February probably. But here's what's cool. Like, here's the trailer for season 7, the final season. It looks great.
Soon, the galaxy will be remade. The Jedi and the Republic will die.
I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi. Great care we must take.
Why would anyone walk away from being a Jedi? We were trained to be keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
We clones have mixed feelings about the war. Without it, we wouldn't exist.
All part of the plan. The plan. Everything is about to change. Every choice made has led to this.
Yeah, that looks really good. And what's cool about it looks like it starts before episode 3, and then it kind of mixes in with it, because there's definitely some lines from episode 3 that is in the trailer. And then I think it'll probably end with Order 66 and all that, with probably from Ahsoka's view and like Rex's view, which I'm really excited about. Like, I really love the show, and I definitely, if you're a big fan of Star Wars, if you're a big fan of Star Wars, I'm pretty sure you've seen this. I've seen this show, but if you haven't, definitely recommend watching it. It's definitely worth getting Disney Plus for. But honestly, Disney Plus has so many good things. It's honestly still worth it, even if Clone Wars wasn't on there. But yes, I can't wait for it to come out. Alrighty, so look at some bad stuff of the week. So this story right here is just so bothersome right here. As someone who worked in retail, it's very bothersome. So, okay, so there's this like kind of thing that goes around, like when people work in retail or fast food restaurants, and it's a phrase. It's called "the customer is always right." And before I started working, that's what I was told before, like, I got my first job, which was at KFC, and I was told, the customer is always right. Remember that. But after working in retail, the fast food, and delivering for Papa John's and all that, like, that statement, the customer is always right, is complete BS. Complete total BS. Because the customer is not always right. They're sometimes get a bit of time wrong about a lot of things. So here's this. So the story is basically there's a guy named David Levitt who's like a journalist of some sort. So he went and he went to a Target over in Massachusetts and to get an Oral-B toothbrush. And he picked up the toothbrush, and the thing is that on display there was a display of the toothbrush, and on the display there was a little tag that said like 1 cent, and clearly on the tag it says display, so obviously that little tag is like 1 cent to make. And they do that, when I've heard, they do that for inventory purposes, because of course around this time inventory is happening, so they have to do this in order to properly count the displays and all that. And they can't have it at $0 or anything. That's why they add the 1 cent. So this doofus right here, like, brings up the checkout counter and says that, he saw that this toothbrush was 1 cent. Obviously it isn't. It's probably like more like Oral-B toothbrushes. Probably $10-15, I guess. But he tried to say, it's 1 cent, which is completely wrong. So, but, the manager wouldn't honor the price because she honestly knew that wasn't right. So, what he did, he actually took the picture of the display, took the picture of the manager, and then publicly shamed her online. And here's what he said on Twitter. This Target manager, Tori, is not honoring the price of her items per Massachusetts law. And there's this stupid law in Massachusetts is that requires grocery stores and food places to honor the price that's marked on items or whatever. So, I mean, of course, it is right. If it is, most of the time, managers will honor the price if it does look like it is. Even if it is not on sale, they will still honor it. But the idea that it being a law, the government's involvement, there's stuff in that area, just makes no sense. But anyways, this particular situation doesn't even break the law, because the law says, like, if it's like a kind of an error or whatever, and was it even error? It was actual display tag as 1 cent. So yeah, she didn't even break the law in this thing. But he goes on the tweet that he actually had to call the police. I had just called the police because Target refused to sell me the toothbrush. And he goes on to say, I did not call 911 or call the business number for the police and told them it was not an emergency. They had to take their time and explain the situation. And he goes on to say that, the police said, they've verified the price or whatever, which I doubt this because I doubt the police are that stupid. But this is just, it's so irritating, and just, as someone who worked retail, this is very irritating right here. When you have someone doing this right here. And thankfully, Twitter rallied behind this lady right here, and actually had a GoFundMe thing going, and gave her thousands of dollars. That was really cool. But yeah, this guy got rightly shellacked on Twitter for this, and it's just, again, it's so irritating. But this makes no sense, and this is why I recommend, if you're going Google shopping, have respect for, again, it does sometimes you can get irritated with workers and all that, but don't complain about something just to complain or whatever. Have respect for the workers there. People out there just have no respect for workers, and it's irritating because I've had that done to me too. So yeah. Alright, so that's all I have for today. So before we get going, I do have a little cool exciting announcement. So I'm going to be launching the God and Freedom store pretty soon. So what the story is, I don't have all the details we're going to have yet, but I'm going to have probably decals and the t-shirts and hats and all that good stuff. But again, it's a work in progress. I don't have everything prepared quite yet, but just to let you know, it is going to be coming soon. But not soon, but eventually we're going to come. So I kind of take my time on it, get it right and everything. But it'll just be on my website. You can find links to different products. It'll be shipped from me. Basically, you can email me for an order, and you'll pay through PayPal or Cash App or something like that. But again, I'll work all the details once it officially starts. But other than that, I'll see you on next. I'll be back here next week. Remember, you can find me on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Other than that, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next week. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God and Freedom Show.